item, you know, how should we plan for that?
Right.
Is it worth me showing the plans real quick? Has everybody seen them or looked through them, at least through the email?
I looked at it quick, but I wouldn't mind you giving me a quick summary of what you highlighting.
All right, let me see if I can pull them up. Let's see. I'm just going to share my whole screen and then I'll pull them up that way. Cancel that. All right. Can you guys see that?
Oh, yes, I can.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So again, we've got basically kind of three concepts that are all very similar or have a lot of similar components. It's just a matter of kind of moving pieces around. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit here. So in this one, you know, we have two multi-use athletic fields at the top. We have the 50-70 Little League field, and we have the parking that can fill, you know, work with all three of those fields operating at the same time. We are showing a covered pavilion event space in the middle, drop-off locations along the whole edge of the parking area. We've got a restroom storage building, which is kind of comparable in size to what's over at Aquatic Plains now. We've got better parking circulation. We've got the walking paths that lead through, come all the way around the whole site. The small playground to be able to accommodate kids and siblings that are on these athletic fields. New streetscape with parallel parking, sidewalk, bike lane, alley of trees, things like that. So the frontage looks really good. And we're showing a new building over here next to the playground that's kind of half towards the playground to be more public pavilion open space, and the half away from it would be a maintenance area where they could be bringing in equipment, storing things and things like that. And then from an aquatics perspective, we were recommending in this scheme of a smaller, you know, just kind of bare bones aquatic area, just enough of a building to house the pool and needed amenities, and make it part of the community center complex, take off the D wing, which is unused, and build it there. And then the splash pad goes alongside it. This is slightly different than what we had for the public. And that's because we heard that these pickleball courts that are down here are very important, and we wanted to maintain those pickleball courts. So we slid the water feature down below it, and then new parking. So I'm going to move things around on my screen. That was kind of one. This is just the blow up of that same concept, number one. So then going through concept number two, everything is the same except we take the splash pad and we move it from down here at the community center to up here associated with the playground. So just zooming in on that, there's a nice symbiotic relationship of, you know, the amount of kids that love to go to the playground and how we think the splash pad could be used. It does add a little bit of level of complexity when you break the splash pad and the aquatic center apart, because we now need a new building up here to house all the filtration and sanitation and bathrooms and things like that that are required to go with a splash pad. And then I would just add that we probably need some fencing and some separation, just because a splash pad, all those two uses are nice to have together. The kids would be using all of it. We do have some concerns about, you know, kids that are sopping wet from the water going over and getting equipment wet and slippery and tracking sand back and forth and things like that. So it's a great, it's nice to have together, but also poses some problems to have them together. And then the third option is kind of the full build out, the athletic fields at the top. We've relocated the 50-70 field from this area down here. We can just kind of barely squeeze it in. And again, this is a modification after the council meeting. The council meeting, we were talking about just moving it to Sutton and doing a shared. And we've now looked at over here that we think we can fit it in. We have to trim the outfield just a little bit But again, on a 50-70 field where it's a transitional field to begin with, we think it's likely that we can fit it in there. We could either trim the outfield or even look at the space that we have in there for the infield between home plate and the backstop and be able to kind of get it in there in place of that D wing there again. And then back to the kind of the zooming in on the Clodchester property itself. This, would be a true aquatic center. It's a bigger building because we have to have room for all the uses and all the offices that we could kind of do a shared use for at the community center. So the building gets bigger. Potentially the splash pads or, pad or pads get a little bit larger. But the benefit is having it all right along the street, a very, visible amenity that we think would be a great addition. And everybody coming and going through town would really see this and could be a source of pride and probably get a whole lot more use than if it was, kind of tucked in behind the back of the community center. So those are really the three options we've thrown out there. The fourth option will just be basically the same, all of this, but just holding this area as kind of a home for where the aquatic center could go in the future if we don't want to pay for it all up front. That makes sense?
Ken, I have a question. Yeah.
Yep.
How does, I don't have our recommendations from the Fields Committee. How does that fit in with our recommendations from our needs assessment as far as rectangular fields go? What were we looking for there?
We were looking for 2 rectangles and the 50-70 field was what we had as an assessment to go here. That's why we started with that as kind of our beginning. And then which I think which obviously fits.
Yep.
It's the aquatic center kind of threw that program element in. Where do we fit that? That's why we looked at kind of the two, in my opinion, 2 best scenarios to either attach it and put it part of the community center or make it a standalone here. And then that's when we were looking for a new home for the 50-70 field, which can fit down here. So we meet, as far as this property goes, or properties, if we want to count it that way, we can meet the needs that we had in our assessment.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So obviously you're gonna, the last part 4 is no pool in there, right? No
Yep.
aquatic center at all.
Yep.
Would that 4th scenario still have a splash pad? Because I think those are like 2 separate parts, I think. You understand what I'm saying? So I think the first one that had the pool over at the old Fitch Middle School and the splash pad somewhere in the region.
Right.
That's what that one is, right?
That's what this, this
Yeah.
one has just the pool here, the splash pad over here. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so really to me, again, the program uses that we got from the public were the athletic fields and basically taking the task force recommendations of the 2 multi-use fields and then the 50-70 field, fitting those in here, fitting the public event space in here, the streetscape, the parking, the bathrooms, the playground, we were able to get all of that in here for the most part. And then it's just a matter of kind of, do we build this as a baseball field now? Or do we hold it as just an empty practice area for an aquatic center in the future? Or do we want to bite the bullet and do the aquatic center, at the same time we do everything else?
So
And then this is really high level, right? Because there's going to be things like even all this expanded parking we've talked about for Quantic Plains, that could be, in the end, we could break this into a whole bunch of different projects if we really have to from a funding perspective. But we're just trying to kind of get really big bites at the apple to see what the most important is.
on our end as a task force, and might need Mark's input, but where would the youth football practice? Where would you see them practicing?
They still practice, here on either one of these 2 fields.
Okay.
I think right now they practice they have, a long field kind of all the way down here
Right.
that they use. So I think in the end, these two rectangles will end up with more actual field space than what anybody currently uses out there. And then if in the meantime, if this is kind of a practice area, they obviously could practice on that as well.
Right. Right. If they chose not to fill that with anything at this point in time,
Correct.
because you could just grade that and do your thing.
Yep. I think at the very least, if this is, not built to be anything in the near term, then yeah, we grade it smooth, we seed it, and it basically is a practice field.
Because I just
And
get concerned about obviously usage, right? I mean, that's really why it gets shredded.
Yep.
But
And I'd
without the school there, it would only be the one season. I mean, it would be those 2-3 months and then whatever, 3.5 months. But
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it gets heavy football use, during football season, and then I say it gets heavy use during the spring, during lacrosse season.
I
'cause that's
forget
one of
about
the
lacrosse
fields
there. Right.
that we use quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
And I'll just note, we're showing a soccer outline, and it was asked during the council meeting as well, but we show that just because it's the largest field type there is. So football, lacrosse, men's and women's, everything fits within that outline. And I'll also just note that this is like the largest full-size high school soccer field. So it's the same size that we have over here. If you look at, the fields on Pequanix, but it's bigger than the fields that we end up being able to stripe at the community center just because of field space.
And that's without the expense of taking down that ridge, that the ridge stays pretty much, correct?
But I think we lost Chad.
Okay,
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
Just due to the cost.
Yep.
None of the options include taking out that granite or that stone ridge.
which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. And I think, with all the blasting and everything that it would take to clear that, it would just be way too disruptive to that whole area.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't, you don't really, I mean, it's kind of long and narrow, so you don't really gain a whole lot.
Right.
It's not like you could take that out and put in another field or anything like that.
Right. I think that Chad had talked about that early on, that when we talked about that area down there, that blasting that middle area would be quite expensive. And what do you agreed? What are you going to put in there? Just more parking, probably. It's not like you can. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I'm back. I don't know what happened to my signal there, but
kids are doing their homework.
I wish, I hope.
They're gaming.
Could be.
So you're going to present those on the 7th. Are you going to, obviously you send it to the board before that? Is that how it works in general?
Generally, yes. What we talked about here was that because this won't be part of the board or the council meeting, it technically probably won't be on their agenda, so it won't be in their packet. We'll have to talk about it. Like I said, when we meet with kind of staff next week and we review the cost estimates and how we want to present this, it might, on some level, it makes sense to obviously give them the information beforehand as long as we can. But it'll also be presented to them ahead of time, and we'll have the handouts and everything that they can take from that point.
Yeah, and kind of our strategy in doing it just before the council meeting was that hopefully the council will be there. I think, when Chad did the public visioning, there was maybe 2 counselors.
We had a couple, maybe
yeah.
3, and then they kind of
Okay.
didn't necessarily stay the whole time.
Right. So the goal is, okay, let's do it right before the council meeting so that we get greater awareness during that time from the council, because they're hopefully going to be there.
Because I do believe that, I know that a couple of them were there. But they'll know about this, so I mean, it's
Right.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have anything else they want to discuss, Mark?
No, just, well, I'm not sure which Mark you meant, but
I'm sorry, you,
I
Mark,
was
yes.
just, yeah, I was just going to say, you know, it's the 7th is a really important night for us to get everybody out and, you know, to speak up at their council meeting, to share their thoughts and hopefully their support for what we're proposing.
Now, so because I'm just not savvy enough and don't pay enough attention. So the 7th is, you're talking about the actual meeting itself? Or the prior part,
Yeah, I'm talking about
the 5:30?
the 5:30 to 6:30. That that's a public information session. It
Yeah.
is occurring just before the council. And again, hopefully council members will, you know, want to hear what the public has to say. They're out that night anyways for a council meeting. And then on the 28th, we actually go back to the council and, you know, present what we heard from the public. And as Chad mentioned, in between, there's going to be kind of we're going to utilize Bang the Table, which in Groton we call Greater Groton, that social engagement platform, to collect more feedback from the community. So the options would be up there. And I think, you know, the price, the kind of range, the estimated costs would be up there, so that people could get a sense of what we're talking about or what's being proposed. So Rachel has her.
So is that the type of, so that link, when that comes out, so that we know it's out there, that's the kind of things that we should send to our family and friends, and
Yeah.
Mr. Romano can forward it to all his hundreds and thousands
Yeah.
of friends.
I think the booster clubs and all that, people in town, all that stuff.
All the youth clubs, get everybody out there.
Yep.
Yes.
I see
Chad,
Rachel joined.
Yes, yeah, and she had her hand up. So I promoted her to a panelist.
She's gonna be happy to know that she's been promoted.
Thank you. My video doesn't seem to be working at this moment. I don't know why, but yeah, I was excited with the presentation and I wasn't sure what, like, we had an email that came out that said that you were coming that day before the meeting, but it didn't say you were going to have the pricing estimates. So I was sort of confused what was going on.
Oh,
So I talked to John Bird about it and he said that you would have the pricing estimates, that he's just got to get them from the town, you know, the departments, to make sure that you guys are all set. But you are definitely going to have pricing that night, like just roundabout estimates, not exact figures. Obviously, you can't do that without full research. But
Yeah, it'll be big, you know, what we kind of call very high level kind of cost estimate, right? Like it won't be down to pennies and cents. It'll be kind of order of magnitude, so that we have an idea, you know, is this a $200,000 project or a $20 million project? And we'll break it down so that kind of the public and the council can understand kind of how much each component might cost. And again, in a conceptual way, so that if people feel the need to make choices or recommend, you know, they want X before Y, at least we'll have some order of magnitude numbers to put with that.
right. And then Mr. Barry, are you going to have any kind of number for like potentially what somebody would pay per year to be a member at the aquatic center? And then of course you would have fee based on, you know, income necessities and things like that, I'm sure. But would you have any of that kind of numbers?
I am trying to get a summary sheet of a feasibility study. I spoke to the consultants that we're working with on the recreation master plan, and they do feasibility studies, and we're trying to get numbers so that we can say, it's going to cost X to build, operating is going to be Y, and the revenue from memberships and things like that, would be Z. So we're trying to get that. And I said this at the council meeting, it's a little tricky because we don't know exactly what the community wants. A soccer field is a soccer field, whether it's here or there, but what's inside an aquatics facility is, there's a pretty broad range of what could be in there, and they all come with different prices. And so we're gonna do the best that we can without not having a whole lot of information.
All right. And the only reason I asked that is because there are some people in our community, I don't think it's really crossed their mind that they would have to pay a membership fee. And I know it's sort of shocking that you would say, well, wait, why wouldn't they think that? But I don't think, some people they don't think that way. They just want a pool and they think they'll be able to use it,
Yeah. Well, people pay for programs now, so.
Right, but I just don't think that's on their radar when they think of this.
Sure.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's just not.
and maybe we don't go with a membership option. I mean, maybe it's just you pay for swim lessons, you pay to get into the pool. I mean, there's all kinds of different options, and it may not. And that's, and you're going to, Councilor Franco, you're going to continue to hear me say this. That's really why we need to do like a full-fledged feasibility study. And
I am on board with you. You're not.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir. Okay.
I'm on board with you. I want to get it
Okay.
going. So
Yeah.
let's just figure out
Yeah.
what we want to do and get it going.
Yeah, and I'm getting an estimate to do a feasibility study, and that is going to be in the CIPs that you see this year.
Okay. Great, thank you. I'll be there early. And just to let you know, our meeting last Tuesday went till 1:11 a.m. is when we adjourned. So hopefully our meetings won't go so late, but
Yeah.
You had a
Thank
lot of
you.
money to give away that night.
sure did.
Yes, thank you for your commitment to sticking that out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm very excited about this, and I'm excited to just figure out which plan to go with.
Rachel, any thought or opinion from baseball as far as, the 50-70 field location?
Well, I told my husband there was a meeting tonight, and he's like, you need to push for baseball fields. So
Thanks for the input.
Yeah, that's
But,
what I expected, but
I'm trying
Chad,
to be like good with everybody and just do the best for our community. But as you know, my house is a baseball house, and there is a great need for baseball fields. And I'm very excited with what they did with the T-ball field over at the community center. And I was hoping behind that they were going to do the 50-70. And I tried to ask Mr. Berry a bit about that, because I thought the 50-70 they were going to try and do right there behind the T-ball. And I didn't want to get too much into it at the town council meeting, but.
Yeah, and Chad, I'm actually meeting with Dave Franco tomorrow about something at Calvin Burrows, but I can ask him, because I know originally, Dave had approached us and we had talked about doing the field, making the field at in Sutton a 50-70, but this other option may work out because it's less disruptive to the other youth baseball organizations in town. So we'll have that discussion tomorrow.
Right, because the one at the community center could be T-ball and then a 50-70. And the one at Sutton, I think he was talking about if they bring that tournament, if they get the tournament, they can scrape and make that into a 50-70 as well. And then, if they scrape the mound and pull back the bases a bit.
Yeah.
And then put it back, and they could put it back to a regular field after the tournament's over.
Okay.
or you could do,
Okay.
depending on mounds. But anyway,
Well,
of
that's
course, we
what,
would like to have a baseball complex in Groton, because we don't have that, because now you're gonna have like your soccer rugby kind of complex with the rectangle fields. And of course, the baseball community would like to have a complex somewhere, but
yeah, I agree. We've been looking and it's just a matter of the space, you know, and that's where at one point we could do the Sutton Park idea was you could get 3 fields over there instead of the 2, but they'd all be little league. And right now, you know, it doesn't look like we need the little fields. It looks like we need the bigger fields more than the little fields. And so that's why we were, you know, looking to redo that into 2 bigger fields. And then if the 50-70 goes by the community center, it's great because we need it. But I agree, it would be awesome if they could all 3 be together. We just don't have the space in one place to do it.
right. Unless we buy some land.
Yeah, but we need to, I mean, we looked at, right, the surrounding property around the library and stuff like that. And it's not enough land. We'd need, you know, significantly more continuous acres in order to pull that off.
What about over by High Rock Trailer Park, that golf course over there?
Oh, there's lots of room there. Yeah, we looked at, you know, that a while ago, probably a bunch of years ago before it even was, you know, while it's still being used as a golf course. And it's possible for sure. It was just, there's just a purchase price, and then the development after that.
Okay. All right then.
Yeah.
How much do you think for a baseball complex? I mean, you're gonna come up with numbers. I can talk to you about this later, but I won't go into that in this meeting. So I'm excited. I'll be at that meeting, and I'm just happy you're coming with some numbers, some rough estimate numbers. And I think some counselors, it means a lot to them. And there was a counselor at that meeting that said they didn't think, like the aquatic center, when they find out the price, they're not gonna want it. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know. People have been crying for a pool for a long time, so
Mhm.
we'll see. So thank you for all you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. So if nothing else, if no one has, we should be meeting the week of the 13th of February again. Don't know if that makes, well, 2 things. A, I'm going to be in Florida. Just saying.
Nice.
But if it's between those 2 meetings, I don't know if that would add any value to, other than discussing what we see or hear on the
Right.
7th. We can move it to the next week, but then you're running in. So I don't know. What do all of you think? Do you want to move? Do you want to try to do it the following week? So that would be the whatever, the February, like the.
You're saying after
23rd,
the,
or do you want to
after the
wait until
7th?
March?
Looking at what, Thursdays?
Yeah, so
so either the
not the
16th or 23rd.
yeah, so the 16th, we can have the same meeting without me. I'm okay with that. Definitely.
It's a Zoom meeting. How come you can't do it from Florida?
7 o'clock in Florida on a Thursday night. I'm not so sure that's probably the best idea for me. Just speaking honestly.
Is February 20th the next Thursday then, Frank?
23rd?
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Yeah.
23rd
Yeah.
is the next
So
Thursday.
16th is the following Thursday, and then the 23rd is the last Thursday of the month of
Right.
February.
So what would be the goal of meeting either of those 2 times? I mean,
Right,
that-
we need a quorum.
we won't have, the council wouldn't have made any type of decision. So essentially, we just, I guess, be discussing what we all saw and heard at the public presentation.
Right, which probably isn't really required. I mean, I could go either way.
Yeah,
And then the 27th, the 28th is probably more important after that, right? So now we got the 28th where they're gonna present what I think, I'll call it a final plan, if you would. To a go forward plan. So we could wait until March to meet. I would personally be okay with that. I think that makes sense to
I'm
me.
okay with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, Chad, you don't need
When are you
us
gonna
for
get
any of
the-
that, do you? For the presentation or no?
just your
I don't-
attendance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say just attendance and just, getting people to show up for it. Yeah.
Right,
Mm,
so both on the 7th and the 28th, right? Yep, okay,
I would say
don't-
the
I don't
7th
think-
for sure, 28th,
Right.
probably not.
all
I
right,
don't think there's a public to be heard, but that doesn't mean, after the presentation to the 7th, that, you can't reach out and send emails to the council because they look at all of those and when they do their reports, they could obviously not read through every one, but just kind of share the general sentiment of whatever emails are sent them.
Yeah, I would say between the 7th and the 28th, if you guys made sure that every youth organization we've talked to knows, that either to show up on the 7th, so ahead of the 7th, let them know that they need to be there. And then between the 7th and the 28th, to go online to the, Greater Groton website and put in their input. And then if they want to send, letters to counselors and let them know what they want, that would be probably beneficial also. But all that should be wrapped up, before the meeting on the 28th or whatever it is.
Chad, will there be things for, we're getting groups from the high school and from the youth groups. Will there be things, at least a slide or something of how this meshes with the whole athletic fields, our recommendations, so that, they can see that this is part of a bigger setting?
Yeah, I think that's what what we talked about a little bit ago, is that we need to make something to make people aware that this is just part one, solving the first piece of the puzzle. And then with this information, we can then, tackle the other two parts of the puzzle and come back to the public with the whole picture for all athletic field needs.
Yep.
And Mark Barry, if you wouldn't mind sending that link out to the Groton Town, to the Greater Groton
Put together this
website,
committee,
to
I
everyone.
guess.
I'm sorry, Frank, which link is that?
Just add the link to the Groton website, so when we forward stuff, we can forward that link to everybody. To the website where this,
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Once we put the information up there, which will be right around, or around the 7th, we can give you a direct link right to it instead of just even the whole. It'll be the Greater Groton website, but then there'll be a direct link right to this page. And also, I think anybody that interacted with it previously and took the surveys, they should get a notification that new stuff was just added as well.
oh, even better,
Oh.
great.
Oh, that's cool.
So did you decide on a next meeting date, Frank? Is it going to be March or?
Yeah, I think it'll be March. I think the
Okay.
next meeting will be March 16th. Right before my big race on the 18th.
Yeah, and hopefully at that meeting, we can maybe start looking at a draft RFP, RFQ, for the next phase.
Now, I know that when we started this some time ago, if I'm not mistaken, the Parks and Rec had to not go out for bid for that, right, or something?
Mhm. Yeah, we'll have to put a whole bid
Right.
package together. And then, yes,
Because I think I told Jerry at the time that I would volunteer to be on the search committee, or what, I forget what
Okay.
title he had for it.
okay. Yeah, probably the interview panel.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words, but I think Coach Costa did as well, but I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Yeah,
Okay,
I believe I did.
okay.
I want you to sign up. I don't want to sign you up for anything, Coach.
Okay.
So. Okay, so we'll set our next date for the 16th of March.
Yep.
And
Try
then
to
of course
get
the
everyone
two things before
confirmed so
that.
they can get a quorum.
Yeah. All right. Anybody got anything else? Great job, Chad. I think I agree with Mark. I feel steps. We're going forward.
Yep.
Process.
Yes.
Right.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
Good night,
Thanks,
guys.
Mark.
All right,
Right.
thanks,
Thank you,
guys. Have a
everybody.
good night.
Have a great night.